And now we are joined over the phone by Dr. Yahia Abdulqader, tourism expert. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Yeah, great. So, sir, the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities has launched a major project to upgrade internal roads and visitor services at Saqqara archaeological site. How important is this project?
Well, the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities really is planning, great, schemes for upgrading, the facility and the environment of the Saqqara necropolis, which is one of the greatest sites as a heritage and archaeological site worldwide that houses the Great Saqqara Museum, as well as the Step Pyramid, which is the nucleus for development of the Giza Plateau pyramids, Cheops, Kef, and Mykirenes. So it's a great plan to create an ecosystem which will make, the visitors, and touring the antiquities and the heritage in that area, will become a memorable experience.
And how attractive is this site to tourists?
It is, this is the oldest, archaeological sites, and remember, there is, the burial site as well for the ibis, sacred bull, and some of its, tombs weigh about over 80 tons, carved, and very hard, granite and other, archaeological elements. So it's a very rare location, and it was very venerated, and respected by ancient Egyptians. It was a pilgrim site for them because, the ibis, bull was just like a sacred sign for fertility, which was one of the part, of the beliefs and mythological feelings of ancient Egyptians throughout this time.
So, sir, in what ways will improving the basic amenities such as adding sunshades, smoother internal transit directly impact the visitors and the overall global competitiveness of Egypt's archaeological tourism?
Yes, really, the upgrading, scheme and plans to upgrade the facilities will be afford, an ecosystem for international visitors to enjoy modernity, mobility, accessibility, hospitality, and diversity as well. So it's not going to be only touring the museum or the sacred bull, site, or, touring and wandering around, the Saqqara Step Pyramid and other sites as well. Now there's going to be all these types of attractions, events and archaeological entertainment that will make the tour, a full experience that's going to take long hours, and they will enjoy it, and it will be a memorable souvenir for them when they go back home and tell about their friends and relatives.
And sir, do we need to launch such major projects in different archaeological sites here in Egypt?
Yes, definitely, because I visited, many locations worldwide working as a tourist counselor for Egypt. So, for example, the Acropolis, in Greece, and other attractions in Turkey and UK. When there is, a historical site and heritage archaeological like this one, so they create, the mythology and the history and the drama, around it, and it becomes a very memorable, tour for visitors, not only spending 2 or 3 hours, but this is an immersive, experience where they feel they belong to that era, which dates back to 2,000 or 3,000 years ago.
So, sir, also, how does upgrading the internal roads networks help manage crowd flow and prevent over-tourism at major landmarks with sprawling necropolis like Saqqara during peak travel seasons?
Well, really, over-tourism, and excessive tourism, has been one of the recent labels with hundreds of millions of visitors, go to one archaeological destination, and that sometimes there is some negative aspects and drawbacks. For the antiquities that date back to 2,000 or 3,000 years ago could be threatened by the overcrowding of visitors, year-round. So, like we create such, like environment as the project has been developed, like under the auspices of the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, that will create, like extended tour time where, like visitors will not be lining up and crowding, causing like negative aspects to the archaeological site, which is fragile and dates back to hundreds of centuries ago.
Also, sir, from a market perspective, how significant is the integration of wheelchair accessible pathways in attracting new demographics of travelers, and what are the best practices for implementing accessible tourism at ancient locations?
Really, as we know, like most, like world sites,
Yes, Dr. Yahia?
At the Cairo Museum in Tahrir, they have tour guides who can, handle groups, which is, with the sign language, this is the only way to access, and understand about the attractions and monuments in the Cairo Museum. So now the Ministry of Tourism is training, young tour guides, men and women, to practice and, enjoy the skills of meeting visitors with, special needs, like for these people who have handicap mobility, the deaf, who has, a natural, handicap. So there is now process for them to make it accessible and enjoyable year-round.
Yes, sir. Also, if we now estimate the summer season and the flow of tourists now, how do you see the flow of tourists this summer to Egypt?
Well, really, we are lucky, because all we know now that there's been a world war, went on for about 4 months now. So world, airlines and navigations and cruise ships, has been threatened and limited to some extent to go through the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. But Egypt still enjoys, a special destination and focus. So that's why we're still receiving, hundreds of flights, on the daily basis to the Gada airport, to Marsa Alam, Sharm el-Sheikh, to Cairo, to Burj Al Arab and Alamein. So this season we have good international and inbound inflows of world tourism to Egypt, and we hope, inshallah, we're going to score, a good record by end of this year.
So, sir, also, if we talk about the services that we also need to integrate to our tourism sector, what other services we need to work on?
Well, there is lots of services, there are the basic services to the visitors and the vacationer and traveler, enjoys or reaching the destination, such, having good transportation, peaceful accommodation, excellent food service, and professional tour guides, to tour the facilities, and they enjoy the country, the music, the food, the shopping, the touring around the country.
Yes.
So Egypt is having, all these types of attractions and securing it. That's why visitors, who visit Egypt once, they come 2 or 3 times, really within 5 to 7 years, period, because they like the country, they like the ambience, the food, the facilities, and whenever they come, there's new attractions.
Yes, sir.
Imagine we had the Cairo Egyptian, National Museum for start, and few years, we opened the Grand Egyptian Museum. So constantly we have new attractions for international visitors.
And so do you think that we still need to open new markets?
Well, definitely, opening a new market, relies heavily on having, airways, and airlines, budget airlines now. For example, we have the Sphinx Airport, which is creating a high demand because it is focusing on charter and budget airlines. So really we need to add at least 10 more airports to Egypt to create demand and to double our air fleet, like what Egypt Air is currently doing with its accessible, budget and charter airline.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Yahia Abdulqader, tourism expert.